Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is Mackenzie. Welcome to the show. We've been planning this for so long, I feel like. When did we talk about it? Summer I Turned Pretty.
Yes, like almost 2 months ago.
Yes, and I have admired you so much. I'm going to let you give your little elevator pitch because I like people to introduce themselves because I feel like they can do it better than a bio that I read or like what I know about you from online. But I've just admired the way you are a reader, like how you are a reader, not just like you like to read, but like your book club and like the way that you post about books and all of that for so long. So I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you so much. And I was prepared to introduce myself because I listened to some episodes of the podcast.
I love,
so
yeah. I always feel like when I go on someone else's podcast and they give like all my credentials, I feel like they're worried about messing it up because who knows, like the bio on my website might be outdated or something like that. Or they're like, I don't know, like what is her like most recent thing that she wants to like mention or like how she wants to describe herself. So I always like to let people like tell the audience about themselves.
I appreciate that. Also, last time I was on a podcast, they did introduce me wrong, and I was like, this is so awkward.
It's awkward.
Those numbers are really awful.
Wait, also, because then you have to be like, oh, that's not the year I graduated, and I didn't go to that school. But it's okay. I understand why you might have thought that. Like, it's always.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yeah, so I am Mackenzie Newcomb. I am an entrepreneur in the book space. And for the most part, what I do is I facilitate friendships amongst adults who like to read, doing so through retreats and like online community options and all sorts of things.
See, I just love this so much. And like, I want to talk more about community and everything. But I feel like, and I always talk about this, when you get into your like late 20s, you start realizing how much more difficult it is to find community because like when you were growing up, all of the structures that you had kind of like maintained your friendships for you, like clubs, groups, sports, sorority, college, whatever it is. And then you graduate and then you're like, oh, how do I even like see my friends or meet new people or like form new relationships? And it has to be through things like book club. And like there has to be people at the helm of that who are like, I'm going to create community.
Oh, yeah. So how many book clubs have we all been in that have lasted like maybe 3 months?
Yeah.
We're 6 years.
No, and it's like, this is silly. So a little bit more about you. I was reading about like where you went to college and what you went to college for and like all that good stuff. Were you always like a huge reader? Did you always think like I'm going to graduate and I'm going to, you know, start a book club and it's going to become really large and it's going to be a huge fucking deal? Did you always think that that was going to happen or were you like, I want to do something else with my life?
No, not at all. So like when I was younger, I read a lot. I read all the books everyone else read, right? I read Gossip Girl, The Clique, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, TTYL.
The Clique is my shit.
Yeah,
The Clique is my shit.
All the cool girl books. Like I was reading the cool girl books.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like a vocarious reader. I have ADHD. I wasn't a really great student, as you probably noticed when you saw that I went to Suffolk University in Boston. You're like, never heard of that. Yeah, that checks. But when I
but you do not need to be a good student to be smart.
No,
because I'm also ADHD and a bad student. Like I definitely perform well in school, but I think that was a lot of parental pressure. I'm not a good student.
Exactly.
I have trouble focusing and I have trouble with authority. And so like those two things, classrooms are not a good environment for your girl.
No, same. And I know that now, but I didn't really know that when I was like 14, you know.
It's tough to know that when you're a kid.
It's hard to know that when you're a kid. So when I went to school, my initial plan was, you know, I wanted to do something either with like magazine journalism. I ran Her Campus at my school. Or I don't know if you guys had Her Campus, but it was pretty,
I did it too.
pretty poppin'. I was in charge of Campus Cutie, so I was
so fun.
I was quite popular.
You were very popular.
Yeah. Everyone wanted to get to know me in college. And so I thought, you know, I do something in magazine journalism or I do something in fashion. All my internships in college were as good as you could get, Boston fashion internships. So then I entered the workforce in New York in 2016 and I realized quickly, I'm like, oh no, I don't have this generational wealth that is required or like to get into the fashion industry.
Yeah.
Or these like connections or anything like that. And I was like, okay, well, no big deal. I worked for a beauty startup when I first got here and it was horrible. I lasted 4 months. My boss was super abusive.
No.
And I got a job offer for Petrosian Caviar.
Love.
Yes. And I started off as the assistant to the CEO of the US, I was 22 making $75K, which was like the big bucks back then.
Okay, guys, so you're hearing it first right here, right now. Work for Petrosian Caviar.
Yeah, seriously.
Go fucking work for Petrosian Caviar.
Food in general, like food and
it's so true.
It's like there really is not money in fashion. fashion until you get to a high point. There really isn't money in
But
beauty
there's
until you get
money
to a high
in
point.
hospitality.
There's a lot of money in hospitality, which I found out. And I was like, okay, slay. I'm living in Astoria. I'm rich as can be. Like, things are going good.
Things are going well.
And I loved my job there. I ended up getting promoted, and I was in charge of all, like, brand and celebrity partnerships,
Love
like all
it.
the influencer partnerships.
So
It was
fun.
so much fun.
I've actually done something with them before.
Really?
Yes, last year, the night before my birthday, don't ask why I remember, they invited me to a master class with like a master like caviar person to like teach us how to taste. And like, I love caviar. Like, if I could pick a guilty pleasure of food, like something on a special occasion that I will request that I get to go to a restaurant that has it, because I will pay the money for it, because I think it is such a treat. And so I went, and it was so fucking fun and interesting. I got so drunk. I was like shoveling caviar. Loved the Petrosian gang. I was like, this is the best.
It was the best. And I was there for 4 years, and they were like
damn.
the best 4 years. We were
Wow.
constantly eating caviar with like Martha Stewart. Like it was.
Sorry, that sounds like your dream.
It was amazing. It was perfect. And I loved it so much. But I also, it's a 100-year-old company, and I was in charge of, like, you know, social media and influencer partnerships, and it moves really slowly. And so I had a lot of free time. And so in my free time, I was like, well, I am bored, and I'm reading a lot of books. The reason I started reading, and this is to answer your original question, is the 2016 election really got to me, and I was reading the news constantly. And so I was like, oh, okay, like, I need to peel my eyes off CNN and the New York Times. But I've been reading so much, like, maybe I could translate this into books. And so a fun fact about myself is I'm really into New Year's resolutions. I almost always accomplish my New Year's resolution.
Love.
And I decided that my New Year's resolution for 2017 would be to read 50 books.
Shit,
And
that's a lot.
I did that, and I like recorded it on my Instagram and my blog, and people wanted to join in for the following year. So the following year I was like, okay, let's do this together. And like, I may as well create a book club.
Yeah.
And I came up with the idea of Bad Bitch Book Club, thinking this was for my friends and like followers of my like 2,000 person Instagram account. We have 25,000 followers, 25,000 members now, for context. I just thought it would be for my friends and like you know, the very few loyal followers I had. And it ended up growing 100 members in the first month, and it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. But it was just an email newsletter. It was just to discuss books via a Facebook group. And then it kind of exploded. But no, it was never part of the plan. Thank God I didn't have like imposter syndrome back then, because I was like reading
Delulu
5-year.
era.
I was so Delulu. Like, I was reading wicked old books. Like, I was like more Delulu than Caitlin Bristow, like making me the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo her first like book club pick.
Yeah.
No offense, Caitlin, it's a good book, but what the fuck? Wait, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always swearing.
But yeah, I was just in my Delulu girl era, and so I started this book club, and a lot of people joined, and it ended up just becoming. It became so big that eventually I had to quit my job.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. It really resonated with me when you said that like you found reading, or like fell into love with reading rather, through like a time in your life where you were like experiencing like a lot of stress from like other things, read the election and consuming that much news. I feel like that's true for a lot of people. And I was recently talking about with my therapist how like I feel a lot of anxiety that the world is like so awful and unsafe. I have like a lot of health and safety related anxiety. I'm a very like worrisome person. And she was talking to me about how like actually like we just have a lot of like people and like mediums telling us how bad the world is, but it's actually like not necessarily worse than it's been. It's just that like you access all this information at such a high volume, whether it's you reading the news, because that's something that we should be doing on a daily basis, or just watching TikTok, being on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, whatever it is. And like you have to balance that out with things that just like make you feel good, even if that's like fucking Sex in the City. And I was like, you're so right. Like it is such an influx of information on a day-to-day basis that can make you feel so heavy. And something like reading is such a beautiful escape to that.
It really is. And
really
you
is.
would not believe how many of our favorite authors, I've interviewed a lot of authors, started writing immediately after that election. Like Emily Henry wrote Beach Read after that election because she needed something to make herself feel good. What would we do without Emily Henry?
No, seriously, what would we do without Emily Henry? I actually, like, TLDR, guys, I was talking to her team about her coming on the pod, and they said, not right now, but before Funny Story comes out. And I was like, yeah! I was like, I'm going to scream, cry, throw up. I will fly wherever she is, book a studio, because I just want to meet her.
You're going to Ohio.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I'm showing up in fucking Ohio, like, I will. But you mentioned like other book clubs and like celebrity book clubs. I'm curious because I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday where they were talking about like who they thought out of all the like high celebrities, like Reese, Oprah, all these people, like who do you think has like the best book club with like the best picks? And like if you were to join one, what one would it be?
Oh, it's not even a question. It's Jenna Bush.
It's Jenna Bush. Okay, they were saying that too. They were like, she's the
Jenna
best.
Bush. I mean, has the most diverse picks. Like, I think she genuinely reads them all. Like I think that she's like undoing some of her father's work with her book selections. Like she's showing what kind of person she is with the books that she picks. She's really quick to pick debut authors. She's really quick to pick authors of color. I think either she as an individual or the people on her team are doing a really good job.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think everyone else is doing a bad job.
Yeah. Well, fair is fair. That was like a random question that I didn't think to ask you, but it just like you triggered a thought for me when you were talking before. I was like, I wonder what she thinks is the best one.
Oh yeah, I'm so honest. I'm like honest to a fault. Someone's gonna
you're like somebody's gonna fucking get their head chopped off here. So when you like started this book club, obviously it started from the ground up, but now you have to do a lot of like community building and like it is a business. Can you talk me through like what that was like, especially coming from a background where like you were working in like pretty typical jobs that maybe didn't require the same skill set, and like community building is such an interesting skill set that a lot of people don't talk about. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, so it was 2020 when people were not engaging with people in real life that we really started
shutting down.
Yeah, no one was seeing anyone except maybe through a glass window. That we started our virtual events, these just meetups that are mostly on Zoom. So they're really like real book club meetups with your friends. Like they usually run from like anywhere between 15 and 40 people. They're pretty small. Like they're we offer them weekly. And so we just started offering them for books that were really popular at the time. So like at the moment when COVID happened, like Jessica Simpson's memoir was popping. So we were like, okay, let's meet up to discuss Jessica Simpson's memoir. And then once we realized, okay, people are really liking this, but they want more time, they want more options, we started coming up with programming. So our programming looks now it's evolved. We had a lot more options during COVID. Like we had 8 to 10 meetups a month during COVID.
That's amazing.
But now it looks a little bit more like, okay, each season it's a new genre and it's volunteers. Well, they were volunteers, now they're paid. That run them. So fall's kicking off in September with Ghouls Night Out, which is our thriller group. So people come every year. It's our 4th year in a row. That they come for 3 months in a row. They have a thriller book club pick and they discuss it with the leaders of the Ghouls Night Out group. In the spring, we have something called the Romance Challenge, and it's 6 romance novels in 6 weeks. And so every week you talk about a different romance novel, and the people who run it are way more qualified than myself to do so because they are reading the like deep cut Kindle Unlimiteds, but also the books that everybody's reading. So people really find their space within our club because it's all run by the best of the best. They know they're going to find great books. As far as like making it a business, again in oh my gosh, when did I actually start charging people? Early 2020. No, it was still 2020. Mid 2020, like probably right around this time, I was just like, I am working so hard at this. I am giving people so much. And like drop shipping merch is not moving any kind of needle. Like it's not really sustainable.
Also when you're working a full-time job.
I'm working a full-time job. And at this time I'm with a company called Tracker, which does influencer marketing. So it's an influencer marketing software platform. So I'm creating content for brands like Revlon and L'Oreal, like big beauty brands. And so I'm like, I'm so busy. I need to make this work for me. So I started a Patreon.
Love.
And people were really quick to want to join and support. Of course, there will always be people who think that all content should be free. Like I'm a library.
It's stupid.
But for the most part, people were happy to contribute. At the time, it was $7. And then I realized the average Patreon was $12. And I was like, okay.
Up the ante a bit.
I was like, I feel as though I'm offering you all at least the average. Like I'm gonna raise this. But people have the option of staying grandfathered in if they were like one of the first few signups to be at $7. And so I started making money through that, and that has paid like my rent and like my student loan bills for like, the last 3 years. As well as now it gives me the opportunity to pay the people who volunteer within the club, which has really helped with community building. Knowing the people who are doing things are getting paid. People really like that.
It's so important. It's so important. I also think people on the internet in general don't really understand, and like this is not me patronizing people at all, but I don't think they understand the work it takes for something like a book club. Like I think a lot of people would be like, Why would she charge? This is ridiculous. All she has to do is pick a book. And it's like, that's actually factually inaccurate, because not only are you picking a book and making sure it's accessible to everybody, then everybody can get it, and then you're answering everybody's questions. Then you have to plan all of the events to make sure that everybody can make them, so that then there's going to be someone, well, I really wanted to come to this. Can you also add one on this day, or blah, blah, blah. Can we switch the time of this? Blah, 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 blah. You're going to have all of that going on. Then you're going to have to come up with the discussion questions and the facilitation topics and all of that good stuff. Then if you want to like throw in a fun thing, you're going to have to plan that. Then you're going to have to like be coordinating with people and hiring people that can help you. It's so much work, and people will look at it and be like, all she's doing is picking a book. And that's so frustrating, because there's so much work that goes behind it.
Oh yeah, there's so much work. And also like, if you just pick a book and you're like, oh, everyone's talking about this book, and then you end up choosing it and reading it, it could be like a wildly problematic book.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have any idea until you told 20,000 people to read it.
No,
Which
yeah.
I did in April.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh really? What book was it? Do you
Big Swiss by Jen Began.
I've not heard
Oh my
of
God, I
this.
interviewed the author. Her first, okay, I have to tell everyone this. This is
Okay.
really, really juicy.
Okay. Oh shit.
So
I'm
she
ready.
entered she entered our book club chat. So we do authors Q&As are almost every month. I'd say like every
That's
other
cool.
month the author comes and talks to our book club about the book that we picked. So
Love.
again, something that takes a lot of time
Yeah.
and organizing. She comes on and we're like, I give her the option of introducing herself, and she goes, I'm going to start off with 2 truths and a lie about why. I'm sorry. The question was, what gave you the idea to write this book, Big Swiss? And for those who don't know, Big Swiss is about a transcriber at a therapist office who like stalks the person whose therapy session she's transcribing in the Hudson Valley, and they end up in like a sapphic relationship. It's a fun book.
That sounds like a great synopsis. Like I'm in to read that.
Yeah. Oh
more
yeah.
when
It was
you're
very
like-
much a me book. It was very
Yeah,
much
you're
like
like, I'm
I
loving this
love
shit.
a
Yeah.
bitchy protagonist.
Yeah.
So I thought that, she just had a really active imagination. No. So I'm like, okay, what gave you the idea to write Big Sweat? And she's like, okay, 2 truths and a lie. Like 1, like I used to work as a transcriber. 2, I lived in the Hudson Valley in like an old home that was like that was creaky, just like price. And 3, like my mother had bipolar and died by suicide. Can you guess what the lie was?
My mother had bipolar.
Yeah, her mom didn't die. Her mom was alive.
That's like so nutso. That's like so cuckoo to like
So
show up
cuckoo
and be
cuckoo.
like, this is what we're gonna talk about today. But then is she basically admitting that the book is like based on a true story, and like she's the person that was the stalker?
Like not fully, but like she definitely like the book. All the problems come from the mom's death, and she's like, well, that's not my inspo because my mom's alive, and we're like, oh my God. And that was the first 5 minutes of this interview. It's an hour long.
I also think it's like so problematic to just be like 2 truths and a lie and use like meant something that
I know.
like that's like a really like not okay thing to do.
I
Like
know.
make your third thing like I don't like French fries. I like
know.
what?
And my mom does have bipolar, so I'm like,
Yeah, no, I'm have a lot of unfortunate like experiences with specifically people taking their own lives that have been close to me. Like I can imagine that your people in your book club were like, what's going on? This
we're
is
just
so
sweating.
well, you're probably freaking out because you're like, I had no idea that this person was gonna come here and just start like
Yeah.
leveraging mental health as a 2 truths and a lie.
No, and luckily this is like my 100th or so interview, so
Yeah.
like I
You're
could.
able to.
I had all the questions ready, but I was like,
Were you just like,
whoa.
oh, okay?
I was like, I asked her if her mom was alive, and she's like, yeah, and I'm like, I don't think she'd like that joke, and then I just moved on
Yeah.
because I had an hour with her.
It's also not a joke.
It's
That's
also
just
not a
something
joke.
to
It's
joke
a
about.
bad joke.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious, like, how do you select a book, and like, what kind of, I guess, research goes into like you selecting a book and making sure it's like unique and something that you think people are gonna like?
Yeah, so we have a few criterias. So 1, the book has to be published within the last year and a half.
Okay.
That wasn't always a rule, but it's just a rule for book of the month slash our Patreon
Cool.
pick. So like the one
Okay.
that we really project to
Yeah.
everyone. We have like has to be under 400 pages
Okay.
because unless it's a YA novel, because YA novels tend to read really fast.
I like the font's bigger too.
The font's bigger, and we only do 2 YA novels a year. So
Okay.
it's rare that comes into play. And then we take into consideration all the books that it's been surrounded by. So if we read a thriller last month, we're not reading a thriller this month. We're not reading a thriller the next month. There usually is like a quarter in between everything. Like maybe one romance novel a quarter, one fantasy novel a quarter, one mystery a quarter kind of thing. We mostly read contemporary fiction. And then of course I'm taking into account the author's background. So like for example, this year we have had pretty like not great Latinx representation in our picks, and the Patreon members vote on the books, by the way. I give them options and then they vote. So there's only so much I can do, but I can give them, some guidance. But as I'm curating the list for the remainder of the year, because I have to, because I'm going on maternity leave, I'm like, I need to make sure that there's a book by a Latinx author. I need to make sure every year we're reading a book by an Indigenous author. I need to make sure every year that there is enough queer books being chosen. So it is a balancing act, making sure that we're reading books that are popular, that people want to talk about, and also making sure that the books that we're talking about expand people's minds and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that's really a lovely sentiment that like you are focusing so much on diversity, because I remember like when I was in college, one of my New Year's resolutions actually that I had one year, I had read a statistic or a story about this person who she wrote a book and then she went to like sell it to publishers and nobody bought it. And then she did it under a male pseudonym and it was 8 times more likely to be purchased. Like 8 times, like 8 times. So basically like the stat that came out, which is like a very rough stat, this is based on like one experience, but a very legitimate experience, was that it's like you're 8 times more likely to get your book purchased and like published if you're a man. And so you can imagine that if you're also not a white woman, it would be even more difficult. And so once I read that, I was like, as somebody who wants to go into books in like a capacity, but hopefully be an author one day, like I'm not going to purchase books written by straight white men. If it like comes into my life, like if someone gives me one or I have to read it for school or whatever, and I'm not saying like fuck Ernest Hemingway, like fuck straight male authors. I'm just saying like,
they don't need you.
I'm just going to prioritize, because I buy so many books, purchasing books by women, people of color, members of the queer community, Indigenous authors, like all of that stuff, and just see what happens. And first of all, I felt like I really got into a reading groove where I started to just like enjoy reading so much because I was discovering so many books. But also I never looked back. Like I still don't do it. I'm a little bit more flex. Like if I see one now that I want to read, I'll pick it up. But for the most part, my entire bookshelf, really no straight white male authors. And so I really think it's like so amazing that your book club is like active, like you're actively in your brain. Like I need to make sure these are diverse choices, and that even if people are voting otherwise, like, okay, well, you guys voted, but still like I want to lift up these voices and make them heard and like make people fall in love with these authors. And I think that's like really special.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's some veto power I use sometimes. For the most part,
I gotta fucking veto this.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry, y'all. Like, we do not need to be reading this book because we've been reading a lot of books really similar to that recently.
Yeah. So what is, I guess, like your current fave? Like what was, I guess, maybe a better question is like, what has your fave been in 2023?
Oh, so Yellowface by R.F. Kuang.
Okay, everybody's saying this.
Yeah, it's like, I am not a contrarian. That's something about me. Is like, if something's good and it's good, it's good, and I'm gonna say it. Like, I think that Yellowface by R.F. Kuang is like absolutely brilliant. It's definitely my favorite, standard fiction novel that has come out this year without a question. And it's gonna be our book of the month pick for August.
And last year was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Yeah, good memory.
Which, because it was also mine. And like, I need to reread it. I'm slightly triggered. So I don't know if you know this. I had this like whole appendix experience. Everyone that listens knows because I won't shut up about it. But when my appendix like ruptured and like I was like the most sick, it was a Saturday and I was in Michigan for work. And I was reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And I had just gotten to page like 150. So that's really when it picks up. Ooh. So I'm busting through it like every chance I can get, and I am sick as fuck. Like can hardly stand up straight. I think it's period cramps. I'm like planning to go to the doctor when I get home, and I got home on a Sunday, and I was reading all day Saturday, like at night or whatever, and then on the plane I was like doubled over in the most pain I've ever been in my entire life. But I read and finished the last like 150 pages of the book, and because then it took a week for me to like get to the hospital and like actually like get diagnosed and like get medication. A lot of things that I was doing or did in that week, I like maybe I'm dramatic, but it just like makes me sick. Like it reminds me of the feeling. It reminds me of like
Oh my
whatever.
God.
So like that book is one of them. Like the outfit I was wearing, like I'm like get the fucking burn the outfit. Like whatever. Like the foods I was eating, like it's literally rising nausea in my chest. But I need to reread the book because it was my favorite book of last year.
Even in like the midst of
I
death.
know. I think it's like one of the best books I've ever read. To be honest,
It's perfect.
the fucking sequence. Like okay, spoiler. The Mark's death coma sequence is maybe the best fucking 10 pages of writing that I have read in 10 years. Like, and that is like an absolute. Like, I was like, oh my God. And so I have to reread it with a fresh head because I was like down bad. And I didn't know
audiobook's
why.
good. If you need like
it's
if you want to
good.
try like a different
A
medium,
refresh,
maybe
yeah.
like listen to the audiobook. But I also want to say something about Gabrielle Zevins and Tomorrow specifically, is this was her 11th published book.
That's awesome.
Right? Like
Yeah.
this is her 11th published book and it was the book of last year. It won every award. Like it was really, really, it's the book that made her famous.
It's a special
So like
book.
if you're an author and you're selling like 2,000, you know, that minimum 2,500 copies of your book that like you need to like get that next book deal.
Yeah.
Your great American novel, like it could
It's
be
fucking
coming up.
coming.
It's coming.
That's really inspiring.
And be patient, right?
Yeah, be
She's
patient.
been publishing for 20 years.
Yeah,
Like,
you have to like be still and wait. And I think that's something that's like so.
yeah, that
for
great
sure.
idea. It's gonna come to
It's
you.
gonna strike at any moment. So on the converse, overrated books and like don't hold back. I have mine.
Oh, no problem.
I
Okay.
have like the hottest take ever, and like people want me to die for it. So
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so well, you have to share yours also, but
yeah.
I'm going to share just my general unpopular opinion of the year.
Okay.
And the books that fall into it.
Okay.
I think this is the year of the sophomore slump.
That's funny.
In romance
That's funny.
novels
That's
specifically.
funny.
Okay. And I like they'll still send me arcs. I don't have to worry about that. But I think that there was just a lot of books this year that I was just like, wow, this is what you got.
Yeah.
So for example, I thought Every Summer After was pretty good by Carly Fortune.
Okay.
Meet Me at the Lake.
Okay, I heard that.
Yeah, not very good. Prettier cover, so I'm sure she'll sell plenty of books. I loved Ava Wilder's How to Fake It in Hollywood last year. I thought her latest book, Will They or Won't They, was not great.
Okay.
It's not a sophomore book. It's like her like fourth adult novel, but I thought Happy Place was just okay.
I need to co-sign that wholeheartedly. Like
It was just okay.
I am a absolute stan of hers. I want everyone to know that. I think if Happy Place was her only book, I would have thought more highly of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that was her only book. I would have been like, this is a fucking great book and I can't wait to see where this author goes next. But I feel like she was going. Like Beach Read and Book Lover, like People We Met on Vacation is like definitely my like tertiary pick. Like the other two are like top two for me. Those books are so fucking good. They're so fucking good that I like literally raced to get Happy Place and I was so excited. I read it in a day and I liked it, but I just thought a lot of it was like, for me especially, I think flashbacks are a great method as a writer, but I think they need to like make sense. And for me, of course they were giving us extra information, but I feel like I had all the information I needed in the present. And maybe we could have gotten more if we just like ditched all of those chapters, because to be honest, they just made me like really feel like hollow and sad, but not like a good cry, just like I'm sad. Like I feel depressed.
Oh yeah.
That's what my experience was reading it.
Yeah. And also like, spoiler, for her to quit medical school to pursue a hobby that she like acknowledges is not something she's good at.
I just think it's also just silly. Like there was this like the part at the end where like she's trying to like almost like make it okay that she's gonna like follow this man, and like I'm all for like follow your man if you're in love, like do it, or like he should follow you, like follow, like that's love, like you do that shit. But I do think like abandoning her entire like everything she had worked so hard for a hobby and a man, and then trying to like she like reasoned around it a little bit and was trying to reason around it in the span of 2 sentences, where I was like, I'm just not buying this. Like, I don't believe it. If it was believable, I think I would have been there. But I wasn't buying that that's actually something that could have happened.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be happy. And I don't think they're OTP.
No.
I don't think they stand a chance.
No.
So, yeah, I think just generally the romance novels that came out this year were not to the caliber that they were last year. Another example is Carolia Stetz Waters. She wrote Satisfaction Guaranteed. It's a sapphic novel. It's amazing. It's about a woman who inherits a sex toy shop from her dead aunt.
Stop.
It's so good. It's
I'm reading that.
So good. That was her last book. Her book this year is called Behind the Scenes. Wasn't as good.
It just like
It
didn't
wasn't
hit
as
for
good.
you.
But there was one exception.
Which is?
Alyssa Sussman's new book. Did you read Funny You Should Ask?
Not yet. I
Okay.
need to. It's on the list.
Okay. It's good.
Okay.
And it's the best cover.
It's great cover.
Great cover. But her book that came out this year, Once More with Feeling, blows it out of the water, in my opinion.
Oh, I want to read it.
It takes place at a theater camp. It's perfect for you.
Sorry, I'm going to the bookstore.
Right? It was my special recommendation for you that I thought you'd really like.
To the bookstore. It's like actually eating me alive so basically for influencers, and I'm sure you know this, but you can't talk about any struck companies right now if you ever think you would want to join SAG specifically, so not WGA. And I just don't know. I don't like foresee myself joining SAG in the future. I just don't foresee myself acting again, but I do have like an immense acting background. And I do think if I ever, and I do plan to go into TV and film writing, and there is a world in which I might, if that became like the thing that I wanted to do, TV and film writing, like maybe there's a world in which I would want to act again.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to like not cross the picket line for that reason because I'm just unsure.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people are like, do you want to act? Is that why you're not talking about films? And I'm like, I don't know. Like maybe. Like there's a small
You're
chance.
young, you're 25.
Yeah. And even if the chance is 1%, I don't want to risk that eligibility. So I'm not talking about films right now because struck companies.
That's tough.
And
There's
it's
a lot of
fucking
films
tough
right now. Yeah.
because there's one in particular, and it's not the one that other people are thinking about, that is like
I
very
know what it
me coded,
is.
and it is killing me. Before the strike, had 2 brand deals with them, had to cancel both.
Ooh.
It's a tough choice, but they understood, of course. And I'm like, it's killing me because everyone's like, what's your take? What's your take? And I'm like, my take is silence for now. But I'll read that book and then maybe I can have a take on that instead.
Yes, it'll scratch the itch.
It'll scratch the itch. So do you have like a favorite book of all time?
I have favorite authors of all time.
Okay.
So my favorite romance author of all time is Kennedy Ryan.
Okay.
In my opinion, to be able to call yourself like a well-versed romance reader, you must be reading Kennedy Ryan's books. She is simply the best. Emily Henry regards her as the best.
Yeah.
She's part traditionally published, part self-published.
Love.
So she's my favorite author. I also like listen, like I said, I'm like every other girl. I really like Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I really like Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. But I also, like, this year, one of my favorite books was A Certain Hunger by Chelsea Summers.
Okay.
Really dark. Yes. So I wouldn't say I have a favorite book, like, of all time. Maybe it is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I have to revisit it. But I certainly have, like, my favorite author, which is Kennedy.
Okay. Love that. I have to look into her. Like, I have like phases. So in college, I had a big ass phase where I didn't read any fiction. I was only reading personal essays and memoirs and poetry. And I actually think that was really good for like my development as a writer because at the time I was writing a lot of essays. And I mean, I guess you would call me an essayist now. And I don't think I'm always going to be an essayist, but like my first book is essays. So I read so many essays. And then one day, at the end of my senior year of college, which was 2020, right before we got sent home from COVID, I picked up a book by Jennifer Weiner.
Yeah.
I forgot which one. Mrs. Everything. No, that's not by her.
That would have been 2020, and it is by her.
That is by her. But picked that one up for no reason. I think I liked the cover. Or actually, I might have gotten it for free because I was reviewing books for the school newspaper. I might have gotten an arc. And I read it, and the fiction bug bit me again. But I'm still such a nonfiction reader that I have to like remind myself. It's almost like when you do something for so long, like you don't even know you're allowed to do the other thing. Like I have to remind myself that fiction is the option. Like that I should read fiction because I like it. So like I feel like I'm behind when we talk about fiction because like I've read like all these niche essay books and like poetry books, but fiction I feel like I'm getting into it now.
Nonfiction book I'm really excited for is Roxane Gay's next book.
I love Roxane Gay.
I'm really excited
Very
about
excited.
that.
She's a great writer. She just kills it.
But I understand. And I feel that way, not about nonfiction specifically, but I feel that way about like fantasy.
Okay.
Like everyone reads a lot of fantasy.
I don't.
Like it's in my world, everyone reads fantasy. And
Yeah,
I just
in your
like, I'm
world,
like, I'm not going to
does.
read Fourth Wing. And everyone,
Wait.
and I'm the only girl in the world that's not reading it.
So my best friend Julia, she has like a bookstagram. Everyone go follow her. Shout out. She is a great reader. We both are great readers. We both read every day. And we have opposite book tastes. Like every fucking book that comes out, like I swear to God, I'll be like, I hated it. And she'll be like, I loved it. And so we can't share books really. Sometimes if it's a tomorrow and tomorrow situation.
The best book of the year.
The best book of the year situation, like Yellowface, I'm sure like she read it, loved it, recommended it to me. I'm going to read it. Like I'm sure with those, Free Food for Millionaires, like those books that just like everybody fucking likes, we both like. But she's like, do not buy Fourth Wing. You're going to hate it. And I'm like, honestly, it's kind of good to have her because I'm like, she reads the books that I'm not going to like, and I read the books that she's not going to like. But I am kind of intrigued. Like, it does kind of sound like fun. I'm like, should I buy it? Like, why am I getting like ousted from buying it?
I know. It feels like the FOMO is intense with that one.
The FOMO is there. The FOMO is so there.
I think we had over 100 people last night talking about it at Bad Bitch Book Club because we have people who run that, so I don't have to.
Yeah, because you're like, goodbye.
And that's really high for us. Like, we'll have to do like breakout rooms in that situation so that everyone can be part of the book club.
Absolutely wild.
Yes.
Do you have like some advice for like a newer reader? I know a lot of like my listeners are readers and people who like to read, but I think like, and like applause to Book Talk. I think it like has really inspired some people to pick up a book, like even if it's the Colleen Hoover of it all, like, and that's like where they're getting their entrance. Like it's a gateway drug. Colleen Hoover is a gateway drug.
Yeah. We don't hate Colleen.
No, we don't hate Colleen here. I mean, I've never read Colleen. I don't know if I am a Colleen girl.
I think, okay.
And I hate to be that way because I hate to be like a see you next Tuesday in that way where I'm like, I like literary books, but I kind of do because I know a lot of people read for plot and like they read for like the characters. I read for writing.
Yeah.
I love prose. Like I love Eve Babbitts. And I know it makes me sound like a cunt. Like I don't know what other way to say it. Like it makes me sound so annoying, but I don't read for plot or character. I always read for prose and writing. And so sometimes when it's books like that I know the plot's going to be like amazing and that's what everybody's coming for and that's why it's getting made into amazing movies and that's why she's like a New York Times bestseller. I'm like, will I like it though? Because I don't even care if a book doesn't have a plot if the writing is amazing. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. That book. Does it really have a plot? No, but like the writing like got me on another level.
All vibes, no plot. No, I get it.
And then what's the other one? Writers and Lovers.
Okay, yes.
No plot.
Yes.
No plot. Felt into my soul.
Okay.
Like, so I think I'm like not a plot driven girl. So I don't know if Colleen is like for me.
Okay, here's my question for you. Do you like reality TV?
Love reality TV.
Then you would like Colleen Hoover. So it's like
but like it depends. I love the Kardashians. I like the best of reality TV.
You're not gonna be a Colleen Hoover girly.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Okay.
But there's some of her books where you just read it and you're like, first of all, they're so fast. I think when I read books with prose, which is my preference as well, by the way, I like to sit with it and like read it and
have a glass of wine and like be so
exactly. I'm sitting at a bar. I have like wine on another day and like an appetizer
on another day,
and I'm just like I'm feeling myself. Like it's a mood, it's a vibe, and it usually takes me about a week. Right, like a week or two to read a book that is like literary.
Like
a Colleen Hoover book is like you're like, wow, I just read 150 pages because it reads really, really fast. So like all of her books are readable in like 4 hours.
Okay.
And they're like really juicy.
Okay.
But I will say some of them are really bad.
So what's like the best one?
Her best one is probably Verity, which is her thriller.
Okay. I'm writing it down for myself.
It's good. Like it's a good book. But something I like about Colleen.
Okay.
First of all, I don't like that she dominates the New York Times bestseller list, and I can tell you why that is and why they haven't been able to fix it yet.
Wait, why? Well, I've explained to the crew here that there's like so many problems, like not problems with the New York Times bestseller list, but it's like it's not like a USA Today bestseller list. It's like a different bestseller list. It's more like a book list, like a choice list, like a
partially yes,
yes,
but it is also based like
on numbers.
So, the New York Times has just historically not been really favorable towards romance novels. So they got rid of their mass market paperback section a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was completely dominated by romance. Then they got rid of their ebook section because it was getting dominated by some like really naughty stuff on Kindle Unlimited.
Those, like softcore porn books.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yes.
I love that.
And so because of that, they don't feel like they can step in and make changes to how the system is currently going and how it aggregates for paperbacks because they know that once again it would be a hit towards what they consider romance. I don't consider Colleen Hoover a romance writer, but that is why. But Colleen started off making $7 an hour, working as a social worker in Texas, like rural Texas, like helping kids.
Holy fuck.
And wrote her first book just in her own spare time, self-published on Amazon. She doesn't claim to have like any like real writing talent.
Yeah.
But she wrote this book, self-published it, made $50,000 on it, was able to quit her job. And she actually ended up hiring all the women who worked with her at the social work office to be her employees in like creating books.
Go off.
And her boss, who was her boss social work is like the person who keeps her on her deadlines now
Oh, damn.
as a writer. So she's made everybody in her community rich. She has like spread the wealth. So she's like a good person objectively.
Yeah.
It's just when you see something like 10 of the books in the New York Times bestsellers all being her books and knowing that they're all the quality of a reality TV show, you're just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, why are so many of these books? Why are so many books that deserve this spotlight and this opportunity not getting it?
Yeah.
But Verity's a good book. And then like maybe like reminders of him. That's a good one too.
Okay.
The worst one is November 9th. It's really a thriller. And I think it's a good thing it's labeled as a romance. And like anyone that ships that couple, find a therapist.
Get help. I didn't even read it,
Get
but
help.
I trust you.
Get help.
So what is your advice for like new readers?
Okay, so my advice for new readers would be take advantage of your library.
Okay.
Because you don't want to invest in like you don't know your favorite authors yet, so you don't know what it's worth spending $17 to $30 on.
That's a great point.
A lot of libraries have a section that's called Librarian's Choice.
Yeah.
And the librarians know what's up.
These bitches know what
they
is
know
good.
what's up. And that's how when I first started reading and getting into like reading a lot, I always picked my books from the Librarian's Choice section of the library.
Yeah.
So start with some Librarian's Choices. Find a couple book talkers or and bookstagrammers who have similar taste as you. You may not know who they are yet. It takes some trial and error, but you will find them. Get Libby, which is an app so you can get free books on your Kindle. But like make use of like all the ways to get free books until you figure out what it is that you want to build your shelves with. And once you love a book, then buy it and then put it on your shelf so that you can lend it out to friends and look at it and enjoy it.
I love that.
It would be my recommendation. Unless you're rich and then just like go off, talk to some booksellers, like make some conversation.
Go to the Strand, start buying shit.
And if you talk to booksellers and you tell them like exactly what you've been reading that you like and you give them like a little formula for what's gonna suit you, they'll like always come back with something.
So true.
I chat it up with booksellers.
Oh, so do I. I love to talk to them. Even when I know what I'm going for and I know I might not even take their recs, like
I just want to know what they think.
They also want to fucking talk. They want to. They like that. They like that shit. So kind of switching gears a little bit. You're 9 months pregnant, sitting here. You're looking stunning, full of energy, glowing, just beautiful. How are you feeling?
I'm really over it now, but I have felt really good my entire pregnancy. I'm wicked cute pregnant, which I didn't expect.
You're
I think
very cute pregnant.
Thank you. I feel like my confidence in like myself and the way I look is at an all-time high, which is insane. It's not what I expected. But I'm just really ready. Like I'm ready.
You're ready.
I used to be so afraid of birth, and now I'm not afraid of birth anymore.
You're just ready to do it.
Yeah, I'm like, let's
people
go.
are doing it every day, every minute. Like it's
every
crazy.
day, every minute.
So are you reading any like new mama books? Like are we doing that? And like what are they?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have new mamas, but like maybe just like the girlies that want to know.
Yeah, okay. So Emily Oster is like kind of that girl. Like she's like the famous girl. She's a data scientist. And so she writes she wrote Expecting Better, which is like on pregnancy in general, and then Crib Sheet, which is like the first couple years of a baby's life. I find her books to be really interesting. She's a little controversial, but she's also that girl. She's the one that everybody knows about, and her books are not dense. So I've read her books, and then Bringing Up Bebe by Pamela Druckmann. It's about a American woman's experience raising her children in France, and like kind of seeing the French way of parenting versus the American way of parenting. Super interesting, very juicy. A lot of people I know who don't have kids have read this book.
I might read the
because
book.
It's juicy.
Yeah,
it's juicy, and it's a good audiobook. And I just actually hosted a New Mom in New York book club event to discuss that book over a French brunch last week, and it was so fun. It was so cute.
I love it. And will you be, I mean, like, I don't know, like, how you could, like, anticipate this yet, but will you be reading a lot, do you think, like, in these first few newborn months? Like, do you think those, like, late nights when you're, like, up and whatnot is going to be, like, Kindle City? Or are you, like, anticipating taking a reading break?
So I'm taking maternity leave from my book club, so I don't have to read if I can't. But my plan is to listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Love it.
Because I listen to a ton of audiobooks anyways, and so I just figured I'll just keep that going as long as I can. My goal is to still finish 100 books this year. I've read 70. We'll see if I actually hit it. But if not, whether I do or not, like, it's okay. Like,
well, you'll need some time for yourself, and I feel like your favorite thing is to read. So, like, you'll have to just, like, take those moments as often as you get them.
Exactly.
Are you building a bookshelf for your son?
Yeah.
And do you have, like, ones he, like, can read? Like, not, like, a picture book. Like, do you have, like, a book that, like, is, like, a Bridge to Terabithia or whatever, like, those types that you grew up with that like you can't wait for him to read when he's like, you know, maybe in middle school or elementary?
So I'm from Boston, so we have a lot of like classic, and I'm very like New Englandy. So we have a lot of like books that are really famous, like
Yeah.
that I had growing up. So like Make Way for Ducklings and like Blueberries with Sal. Like those are some books that I like. I'm like, oh, I read this as a little kid. My mom read them as a little kid. Like I am excited for the classics.
That's so sweet.
We'll also find out if they hold up.
Yeah. We'll also see like what he ends up liking. Like who knows?
Oh, exactly. I mean, he's getting a lot lot of books from publishing houses because
Okay,
they're
yeah.
just like, congratulations, here's like 75 books, and I'm like,
Yeah, you're like, you're gonna be so well read.
yes. I'm like,
My mom likes to take low-key credit for the fact that I'm a writer because she read to me a lot. Like a lot. Like
Credit
more
given.
than the
She's so
average
sad.
like child got read to, I was read to. And I'm like, I bet you that does have something to do with it.
oh, it absolutely does.
So maybe you'll have like a little like bibliophile, little like genius writer child
I hope so. I
that
mean,
writes books.
who knows? Like he's on the Leo Virgo cusp. Like anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
Those are some vastly
Truly,
different signs.
truly.
It's really-
So can you tell everyone where they can find you and how they can join the book club?
Of course. So I'm Mac and Style across all platforms, like Back and Style, but with an M.
Love it.
And you can find Bad Bitch Book Club on Facebook. We're the one with a lot of people in it, as well as Instagram. Bad Bitch Book Club's not on TikTok because I can't possibly make content for 2 people.
That's a lot.
But yeah, anyone can join the book club. It's totally free to join. And if you want to do like our retreats, we did a summer camp last
Looks so
month.
fun.
We had 50 members join that. You know, we're going to New Orleans in 6 months. If you want to join like the more social in-person aspect, you can join Bad Bitch Book Club on Patreon.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you. I'm so glad I
thank you.
came.
Bye, guys.
Bye.